Welcome everybody to the Garden Club's first online tea party. We're looking forward to today's presentations and having this little social time together. For those of you who might not know me, I'm Nita Couchman, the Garden Club president this year. You should have gotten the February newsletter in your email inbox yesterday morning. If you haven't had a chance to look at it, I hope that you'll be able to spend some time taking a look at it and find some things that are fun and interesting and educational for you there. We thank all of our renewing members and donors for supporting the club this year. It's especially important for us to have your support, and we hope that the programs and newsletters that we're presenting will bring some garden joy into your life through these darker times that we're in. And so now we're going to get on with the show. Enjoy your tea party, and I will turn the mic over to Lena.
Thank you, Nita. And thank you thank to all of you for joining us for the virtual tea party this February. It's been a year since the club met in person. And at that year ago, we were able to end our meeting with a social time. And so we really wanted to do something to bring that sense of being together again. And we planned today's presentation to recall those times and to remind ourselves that even apart, we are together as gardeners, and that times are coming when we will meet in person again. I'm grateful to the club board, in particular to Perry Gibbons and Laura Walker, who initially developed the plan for this meeting, and to Helen Huber and Emmy Graham, who joined and contributed additional ideas. Our plan for today is to finish around 11:30. We hope that you can remain with us. We understand that you may not be able to, but if you can, and raise a cup at the end of the meeting. The presentations will begin with Laura Walker taking us through preparing Love Your Life tea, and then Helen Huber preparing her shortbread, and then Emmy Graham developing an arrangement. We will pause for questions and comments between the presentations. Please submit your questions and comments via chat. During the presentations, please mute your audio and turn off your video. Also, please set your screen to speaker view so the presentation is highlighted. I'm pleased to introduce Laura Walker. You may remember that she was highlighted in I believe it was the January newsletter. Laura's our newest board member. She applies her extensive knowledge of leading virtual teams with a focus on communication and engagement to serving as the newsletter co-editor and garden tour co-editor. And as you can see, to helping us plan the program as well. She and her husband moved to Orcas Island about 3 years ago. For her own garden, she envisions a learning environment filled with varying elevations and microculture rooms with space for cutting garden, medicinal garden, shady forest glen, pond for frogs, a fairy space, and an ancient Asian sanctuary. Today, she's going to share her knowledge of tea with us. I'm anticipating that in a few years we'll have that garden on our garden tour, and I'm looking forward to that as well as to today's presentation. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you. Let's see, I'll go ahead and share my screen. There we go. Well, it's just great to be with everybody today. Thank you for joining us. It's been quite the journey learning all about tea for me. So this was a great chance to do some research and learning. And I thought it was really appropriate to share my favorite tea with you, given the challenging times that we have in our lives right now. However, we have so much to be thankful for, and that's where I choose to send my positivity. And I also thought it would be fun on this occasion to share this poem with you. It just reminded me of why we're all here today. Teapot is on, the cups are waiting, favorite chairs anticipating, no matter what I have to do, my friends, there's always time for you. And so let's talk a little bit about the history. Tea has actually a very interesting history. It's said that in 2737 BC, Shen Nung, a Chinese emperor, was sitting underneath his tree when some leaves from the Camellia sinensis tree blew into his hot water. I don't know if you all know about this history. Being an opportunist, as well as a well-known herbalist, he decided to try the infusion out. Luckily, it wasn't deadly. But at that point, tea was created. So that's a little fun fact for you. And as well, what I learned as I was researching is that these infusions are technically not tea because they don't have the leaves of the Camellia sinensis tree in them. And so they're technically not tea. However, as you all know, herbal infusions have become hugely popular throughout the world, largely due to their healing properties. And so we're going to learn a little bit more about that and some of the great varieties of common herbs we can grow here in our own gardens in the Pacific Northwest. And these are just a few. Mint increases concentration, which I quite often need. Chamomile, I drink on a regular basis because it helps with my allergies. Echinacea is just a gorgeous flower. I have several varieties myself, but in addition to being beautiful, it also boosts the immune system, which again is a really good thing during this time. Sage will help with sore throats. Calendula, another one of my favorite flowers, so beautiful and orange, helps your heart. Rosemary fights bacteria infection, in case you didn't know that. And then a favorite of all of ours, I'm sure, is lavender, which relieves stress, headaches, and even dizziness. So there's many other herbs, but I would encourage everybody to, do a little research, pick a few herbs, and maybe do some experimenting, just like back in history. Okay. For some reason, it's not forwarding. There we go. So I was asked to share 3 top tips. And of course, there is a lot of information on how to produce the best cup of tea. And I settled in on these 3. So the first is make sure you're using high quality water. Filtered water is the best, so that it doesn't impact the taste of your tea. Start off with the best. Secondly, and this was a very interesting one, bring the water up to, rather down to, the temperature that is stated in some of the teas below there. Steeping at a particular temperature actually gives you the optimal cup of tea or infusion. And then lastly, try to be patient. The minimum steeping for a tea is 3 minutes, and some say as much as 10 minutes. But by giving your tea a chance to take in all those wonderful flavors, you're really getting the most out of your tea, as well as flavor and benefit. okay. Okay, and so before I get to the, before I get to the recipe, it has a ratio of parts. In this particular recipe, it's not by cups, it's actually by weight. So in order to do that, it can be a little bit tricky, but it's actually easy when you think of this example. So the first thing you want to do is determine how much you'd like to. In the example that I'm showing here, we're going to make a total of 8 ounces. If you look at the parts, there's actually 3 parts. 1 part rose petals, 1 part chamomile, half of a part of hibiscus, and half of a part of rose hips. And so if you take that 8 ounces and you divide it by 3, then it gives you those measurements, 2.33 for the full parts and 1.33 for the half parts. And I hope that that makes sense to you. And so using a scale in this instance is just very critical to make sure that you have the appropriate measurements. And so we're getting ready to go ahead and make our tea. You can see the 5 simple ingredients there. Our tea today is both energizing and calming with the chamomile. It has a lovely flavor, as well as the scent is just very engaging and very pleasing. So with that, I'm going to stop my share, but hopefully you can see me. There we go. Great. Okay, and hopefully everybody can see in front of me all of our ingredients. So you're going to see there's the rose petals, beautiful colors. The chamomile, I have the vanilla bean here, which I cut in 2 long ways, and then I cut up very finely so that it's very small pieces. Hopefully you can see that. And then I've got the rose hips here and the hibiscus here. Apologize, that's a little dark, so it's probably hard to see. So those are our ingredients. And I'm going to set this aside. Okay. And then fast forward, I've got all my ingredients together in a lovely little bowl. And what you want to do is take that and blend it with your hands is best, because that way you can crush the leaves and the flowers together. You can blend all of those wonderful scents and release the flavors so that you get the most out of your tea. And then when you're ready, you find yourself a cute little, this is one of my favorite little pots. And it has a little mesh to keep the leaves, the loose leaves, in one place. And you fill that up, just like that. And then I've got my hot water ready to go. Oh, and it smells wonderful. Really delightful. Okay. Put my little lid on, and then I wait, which is hard to do. But while I wait, I'd like to do a shout out to the Kitchen Gallery on San Juan Island. That's where I purchased all of the ingredients for today's demonstration. Cindy there was so helpful, especially during this time when a lot of stores have been closed and it's very hard to get materials. There's other sources in the San Juan, but I found in my research it was actually very hard to find herbs. So once again, I would encourage you to find your favorite herbs and grow them your own. You know where they're coming from. you know if they're organic or not. And it's just, you know, such satisfaction to do it yourself. In addition, I wanted to again, it's kind of hard to see, and I'd be happy to send out a list of these books that I happen to have. But there's so many wonderful books that have either tea recipes or different varieties, herbs that you can grow here in the Northwest. This book in particular is by Sarah Farr, and our recipe today is out of this book. Great book, a lot of information about tea, and I think you'd really enjoy that as well. And why not make a little bit extra for either a friend, a neighbor, maybe send a care package to a loved one, which I've done before, and I've sent tea to my kids and they just love it. You know, a homemade gift from mom. I just used a jar of jelly that we'd already consumed, and repurposed it and filled it with my tea with a little topper, and that makes just a fun little gift. So, and who knows, it might just brighten their day. And I hope I brightened your day. I hope you enjoyed my presentation. And I guess I'll send it back to you, Lena. If I have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them. If I can't, I will make sure they go in the newsletter, and we'll be able to share it with everybody. Thanks.
Thank you, Laura. I'm just having trouble getting my screen to let me show my video every time I go over it.
Do I need to stop sharing?
No, oh, perhaps, I don't know.
No, it's asking me to share my screen, so I'm not in control.
Okay, it's interesting.
I
can see it until I try to click on it, and then it vanishes.
You need to be the host.
Ah, well, okay, now I've got it. Thank you. Laura, thank you very much. There was just one major question, I think. Perhaps there are others that I didn't see, but the one that I know about is about using an electric kettle or bringing it to the boil, and about deciding how you determine which water temperature for which tea, and how you know that you've got that temperature. Do you actually use a thermometer?
Yes, yes, you do. And there's much debate about the temperatures, and oftentimes there's a range. But using a thermometer, you know, same concept as a scale, you know, the more accurate, the better the cup of tea.
So I've learned something. And I want, Perry is saying what I've been thinking, that she sent that to everyone, but terrific and a wonderful job. I really enjoyed it. I think the temperature for me stood out, but also your care with the measurements and the sizing of the ingredients. And most of all, I would not have thought of using my hands, but that getting in there, and that just resonated with me, and the warmth of the hand releasing the ingredients.
Well, if you look, not to spend too much time here, but if you look at, I don't know if you can see these, but the petals are quite large. And so, which is wonderful. And that's what you really want.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you crush them, it just releases that flavor, and it's just simply marvelous.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll enjoy my tea now that I've waited my 3 minutes.
Okay. And now I'm very pleased to introduce Helen Huber. Many of you may know Helen because she's been with the club, and I meant to ask her how long, and I forgot. So I don't know.
2016, when I moved here.
Okay, thank you. Helen's is communications director for the club, and She contributes a great deal. I would say personally, one of the things besides her attention to detail and her creativity is her sense of humor. That's and her smile. She's a reading specialist and she tutors children. So that's something that's near and dear to my heart, as Helen knows. But not only does she do that virtually, but I happen to know that she's doing it on more than one continent. As an experienced board member, she offers us relative newcomers a welcome perspective of the garden club. And I very much appreciate what she does. And today she's going to share with us her making the cookies. Some of you may have made the recipe and have some comments about it. Others of you may have tried some of the variations that were in the newsletter, but I'm looking forward to seeing what you do today, Helen. Thank you.
Okie dokie. So I'll start now. And can I do a screen share so that people can see this recipe?
Please.
Down
Down at the
I know
bottom.
how to do a screen share, but
Oh.
it's on my desktop. And let's see if this does it.
Yes.
Yes, that does do it. You can see that.
Yes, that works great.
So I'm going to start with the flour, and there's two ways to measure flour. If you have just a bin of flour and you're going to measure with a measuring cup, you can fluff up the flour by doing this. Then you would scoop it into your measuring cup and then use the flat end of a butter knife and just scoop it across and put it in put it into whatever thing you're going to mix in. Scoop, tap, and level off. So this recipe requires 2¼ cups. So that's one way that you can do it. The other way, the more accurate way, the way I standardly do it because I bake a lot, is I weigh things. So when I'm weighing them, I use my gram scale. I will start off with a scale, put it on, and you get a much more accurate measurement when you are, when you're using a scale. I know that 1 cup of flour is roughly 125 grams. And so it's about 325 grams total of the flour. Right now, I have my flour in my, in my measuring bowl here. Now I'm going to add the baking powder. Baking powder is a leavening agent, and it's about half as leavening as baking soda. In this case, it's a 1/4 teaspoon. It's not much. I like these little Rumford things because they have a nice edge and you can scoop in and scoop across and get a nice flat measure. But if you don't have one of those, you can just take a knife, as we did before, scoop it off, dump it into your bowl. Same thing for sugar. It's ½ cup of sugar. It's pretty easy, and I usually don't weigh it. I just make sure it's flat across the top. And I put that in. There's a lot of variations for sugar that are super helpful. The next thing you can use maple sugar, brown sugar. Now I want to talk a little bit about butter. The better the butter, the better it is. However, I'm using Costco organic butter. So there's 2 ways that you can do butter, regular butter. You can either take a frozen stick, unwrap the frozen stick, make a mark that's 8 tablespoons, make a mark at 4 tablespoons, wrap your paper around the bottom and use the large holes of a box grater to grate your butter like this. And you go down to the mark that you made. And it will look like that, like fluffy grated cheese. It's a delightful way because shortbread loves cold butter. I'm going to dump that in the bowl. And the other option for butter, since you need 2 sticks, is to just cut your butter into cubes. So you just cut the butter in half. I pre-cut it before. Cut it into long sticks, and then cut it into cubes. Like that. And then put those into the bowl. You can do this by hand. You can do this by using a food processor. You can do this in a stand mixer. I'm using a stand mixer today. Let's see what happens. So I'll just turn it on and I'll let it go. I like to put a clean towel over the top of it so flour doesn't fly everywhere. Flour does tend to fly everywhere for me. And I'll let that go for a little bit. I'll start off slow. And then I will bring up the speed so everything mixes nicely. When it seems like it's mixed nicely, I'm going to add in the vanilla. I buy from a company in San Francisco called Saffron Exports because they have organic vanilla at ridiculously cheaper prices than regular vanilla that you can get. Because it's the only liquid that we're going to be having, I use a tablespoon. If you were using maple sugar, you might use maple extract or maple syrup. If you were doing a lemon shortbread, you might use lemon extract. I'm using vanilla paste because that's what I have. I've turned my mixer on, and now it looks roughly like, kind of like oatmeal, like crumbly oats. And that's what we want, for it to look like that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the vanilla to it. I'm going to measure out a tablespoon over the bowl. So if there's any spillage, it goes in. Vanilla paste is just a beautiful version of vanilla extract, and it brings a lot of flavor. Now that it's in this form, I'm just going to start it off low. Then I'm going to bring up the speed until it comes together in a beautiful clump. You can also knead that yourself. If you're using a food processor, you could pulse that. Once you have the dough made and it sticks together in a cohesive whole, it'll take a while for that to happen. Then you get to shape the dough. You have a couple options for shaping the dough. I'm gonna stop that screen share. Can I stop the, I guess I can do it by that. Okay, so if you take the, I have a shortbread pan, that's one option for you. You can use cookie cutters. You can take the dough into little balls of dough, and that will work. And then when you do that, you can either use like a potato masher to make a shape like that. You can take a ball of dough and use your fingers to make a little shape. You can use a cookie cutter, as I did this morning. I used brown butter to make brown butter shortbread with, which is so delicious. And I just used a little cookie cutter to do that. Place the cookies on the baking sheet lined with parchment paper, no butter needed because there's so much butter in the cookie, and bake them for about 15 minutes. You want them to be golden. This was a brown butter cookie, so it's pretty golden already. I baked up a batch of cookies for the Opalco workers, and they're gonna look golden on the bottom, and that's what you want. So when you're making shortbread, my 3 top tips for shortbread are: measure carefully, either with a scale, in grams is best, but do what you will, or fluff up your flour, level it off. So measure carefully. My second tip is chill your dough. You must chill the dough. It makes a huge difference in flavor and texture. You can also freeze it. And my third tip is play with ingredients. So you can use different butters and different kinds of butters. European butters have more butter fat, and that's a very different flavor than the standard American kind. And the brand of mixer that I have is a Kenwood mixer. For years and years, I had a KitchenAid, and I like the Kenwood because it has a lot more ability to control exactly what it is. And it also has a pulse. And it's easy to clean, so I love that. And the third tip for shortbread is the third tip was to play with ingredients. And so you want to, my timer's going off, I guess I've had my 10 minutes. You want to play with your ingredients, try brown butter, try brown sugar, try putting a little zest in the peel of a citrus, for example. Are there any questions? Well, that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much.
Well, but you have to wait just a minute. I would like you to say more about the name of the company where you got your vanilla paste.
Oh, okay. So that is Saffron Exports. If you look it up online, Saffron Exports, they are in San Francisco. They sell both saffron and dried mushrooms, but really they're known for their vanilla. They have a little storefront in San Francisco where I used to live, and they sell ice cream and vanilla. And this is a vanilla, which is a little bit more intense flavor than a vanilla extract. They also sell vanilla beans, and all of it is organic. So that is, and I just bought, in fact, a quart of it. Right now they are not shipping vanilla extract, I think because it's the winter. I'm not 100% sure, but I just bought a quart of vanilla paste, and I'm hoping it will get me through the year.
We do have two questions.
Yes.
Lena, if that's okay.
Sure.
One is curious about what brand of mixer you're using, and I think you already addressed that.
Yes, so that's Kenwood. It's a Kenwood mixer, and I bought it online. And if people want to email me, I'll tell you my least expensive source for that Kenwood mixer. I did a lot of research before I bought it. It has a fabulous motor, much better, bigger motor than a KitchenAid, and an equivalent price.
Good. Okay. And the second question is, how thick is your rolled dough when you use cookie cutters?
Very good question. So what I like to do is I like to use a roller that has adjustable edges. This green edge is a 1/4 inch, but I usually roll it out about between a 1/4 inch if I'm going to roll it out for cookies, and I do 3/8 of an inch, a little bit under half, if I'm going to pat it into either a shortbread pan or an 8x8 brownie pan. If you're going to do that, if you're going to bake in a slab, please do make sure that you poke the top of it with a fork so you don't get bubbles rising up. And also, about 5 minutes after it comes out of the oven, turn it over onto a cutting board and score or cut your shortbread at that time. Otherwise, you'll have a crumbly mess that is delicious on ice cream.
Okay, I think that's all the questions that have come in so far.
Thank you so much, Helen. I think my takeaway, besides the source of the vanilla and the mixer idea, was the adjustable edges. I had no idea that until I read your article and that you could have a rolling pin with adjustable edges. And I haven't made the cookies yet, but I've promised Bill that I will do that this afternoon. So I'm looking forward to spending time with that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, and now I'm really pleased to introduce Emmy Graham. And I just need to see. Emmy, I'm not seeing Emmy.
I'm here. Hello.
Oh, good. Glad to see you. Okay, Emmy, we've posed a challenge for you to make and I'm going to, with your permission, read what you have on your website to introduce
Oh,
you. And as for those of you who are listening, when you hear this, you will see that that's quite a challenge for Emmy, who's set challenges for herself in this that fit with, I think, with your ethics and your goals for your business. So she begins by quoting Robin Wall Kimmerer, who wrote, "To love a place is not enough. We must find ways to heal it." And then she goes on, "Our world is quickly feeling the effects of what short-term thinking and greed has done to our climate. Our world is losing wild places, and my garden, no matter how beautiful, is not wild. But if we alter the landscape, which unfortunately we've done almost everywhere, it's our responsibility to participate in its healing. It's not enough to love my island. I must find ways of healing it. The insects, the birds, the small mammals all find a refuge in my garden. I don't use chemicals. I don't till the soil deeply, and I use only natural amendments found nearby, like leaves and seaweed. I'm committed to buying local, used goods over new. And finally, I don't buy flowers from off the islands for events or ship my flowers far away. Shipping flowers is the antithesis of local seasonal flavors. Every time we think holistically about our plant and animal community, we make tiny steps towards a better future." I just thought those were beautiful words. And then here we are asking you to do that in February. And so thank you for joining us and making an arrangement. Also, Emmy is a brand new member of the Garden Club, so welcome to the club. Thank you. And
thank you for having me. This was what a fun thing to do on a gray February day. I really appreciate you guys having me, and I'm really excited to learn more from everybody. Can everyone hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. So when given this opportunity, I thought to myself, oh my goodness, like, what are we going to use in February for an arrangement? And at first I said, nope, it can't be done. And then I decided, actually, no, I think this is a great way to just like exercise some creative muscles that are kind of just sitting dormant in wintertime. So of course the snow didn't help, but I put on my thinking cap and I went out into the yard and into the sort of nearby vicinity. I live right by Crescent Beach. So there's all kinds of interesting grasses and seed pods and things like that. And I came up with a kind of a surprisingly wide arrangement or wide range of things that are still green or interesting in February. So I'll show those to you in just a moment here. They're right behind me. But I just wanted to begin my presentation with sort of a question to a person who would be arranging something from your garden, or maybe it's something you found on a walk. When you're starting down the path of flower arranging, the first question you ask yourself is, why am I doing this? Where is this arrangement going to sit? Am I having a dinner party and I would like something on the table? Or did I just find, I picked the most beautiful, perfect, garden rose, and it just needs like a little bud vase. It could be as simple as that, but just thinking about why and where, your arrangement should go can really, help facilitate what vessel you're going to choose and what you're going to put in it and what other materials you might need. So that's something to think about. Today I'm working with this little beauty. I'm pretty sure it came from the exchange. I really love the exchange. But this is like, I would consider this like a footed vase, or some people might call it an urn. I prefer these sort of ceramic vases versus clear ones for live flowers. I find that, very quickly you can see the gross slime in a clear vase. It's it's good to remember to change the water for your arrangements, because you need to be doing that pretty frequently. But I'm not as big of a fan. But there's all kinds of varieties of vases you can use. I mean, I'm sure everybody has many kinds of vessels in their cupboards if they just go look. I usually often like to do ones with small openings. It really helps provide structure when you don't have a lot to work with. So that's kind of nice. This is like an old ink pot. But yeah, just look around your house. Begin with what you have. Take inventory maybe of vessels that you already have, pitchers, bowls. I mean, really, you know, you can, if it holds water, you can pretty much use it as a vase. And then secondly, I would say, you know, it's important to have some snips that are nice and sharp. So I have my trusty old Felcos and these little scissors, like kind of Japanese ikebana type scissors, but these are for like very small stems. So make sure that they're nice and sharp and that they're clean. And that's also something that you want to think about with vessels, right? Cleanliness really helps keep the life of a cut flower going. Just as much as like a live plant can have disease and die, so can some kind of you know, fungus can also help make your arrangement disappear quicker. So we want to think about clean vessels, sharp scissors, and what you would like to put your flowers in. Okay, so I will bring you over here for a moment. Sorry, I'm doing this on my phone, so it's a little harder to do, but I'm going to show you some of the things that I found to work with. I would say that, you know, I have a lot today here to work with for one arrangement, but it's really fun to have a wealth, right? It's easier. I find flower arranging calming and like an art practice, like a meditation practice. So it's much easier to do that with bounty. If you just have one or just a few delicate, precious stems, you're a little bit limited with the creativity aspect. I find myself more worrying about the preciousness of this one flower. So if you're practicing and you have a bounty in your garden, which I'm sure most of you do, lucky you, then pick a whole bunch and then you have a bunch of things to work with. So today I have, and this is, you can see it's not everything here is maybe like what I would have chosen if we were doing this in April or May. And my anemones, I have anemones growing and they are just about to bloom, like a couple of days. So it was just, I was waiting and I thought, ooh, maybe, no. Okay, so what we have today to work with, we have some like ornamental cherry blossoms that I forced. They're kind of cheerful and pink. I have some yellow willow that a friend of mine was, I think it might have even be, I don't know if it's for certain, but she foraged it the other day for me and it's just cheerful and yellow. I have some Lenten rose. I have some hellebore of different varieties that I rescued from the snow. I have some euphorbia, which, you know, I'm sure you guys all know is, you know, serious stuff. It's poisonous. It's got this milky sap that when you cut it, it can irritate your skin. Wouldn't recommend it necessarily. I mean, I know a lot of the floral designers actually do use it because it's got some interesting colors that you maybe wouldn't see. This one is called Ascot Rainbow. And then I have one over here that's called like Wolf something or other, I forget. Looks very Dr. Seussy. Not ideal, but I think in February, some color, some like, yeah, just got to use what you can find. I also have some sage. Not sage, bay. I did not have any clue that bay grew well here, but this one is just beautiful and it has these like little seed pods that are kind of neat. I have a little ivy. I have a little viburnum. And then I also have some dried stuff that, you know, I don't always
put dry and fresh together, but I thought with the end of winter into spring, some dried with some green might look kind of interesting. So I've got some grasses, some canary grass, which is invasive. Again, I don't really like using invasive species in arrangements, but was pushed to the max with this one. Some dried snowball, what is it called? Snowball hydrangea, some teasel, some this is, I think, feverfew, dried feverfew pods. So that's kind of what we have to work with today. And I'm just gonna say a few more things before I begin the show, which is that when you're harvesting for arrangements, you kind of want to think about a couple different categories of flowers. So the number one and most important part of an arrangement is the structure, and that is the greenery and or the filler. And so I grow a lot of things for filler because that actually makes up, like half or more, sometimes 2/3 of an arrangement, a cut flower arrangement. So today our filler are things like the bay, the euphorbia, the hydrangea, the viburnum a little bit is kind of like a filler. So that's filler is one, or greenery. And anything that has like a big woody branch that can create a structure from which you would add on your arrangement. So that's one, filler. Second is focal. So I don't have a lot of focal flowers today, but focal flowers are usually things like dahlias or roses or anemones and ranunculus, things that are just like the showstoppers that catch your eye. So today my focals are these hellebores. So again, they're not perfect because they want to kind of fall like this. You really want a show-stopping like focal flower that kind of can hold its face up. But we're working with what we got. So focal, filler. Also, usually you want spikes, things that come up, like in the rest of the year, it could be like snapdragons, foxgloves, larkspur, delphinium, anything that kind of creates height. So today I have the euphorbia, I have the teasel, I have the willow, things that kind of create height. So focal, filler, spike, and then discs or umbels. So things that have little faces, right, at you. In summer and spring, it would be things like zinnias or scabiosa, or anything that kind of has a little face that isn't like a big show-stopping flower. So today I think I'm basically using the viburnum in that category. And then the last part is my favorite category is air or movement, maybe you could call it. Some people like to call it sparkle, things that create sort of an illusion of movement or illusion of movement, I guess I would say. So I've got grasses, I've got this like little piece of ivy, things that kind of like make an arrangement sort of jump out of its vase at you, or like the little fairy bits, Okay, so, and Lena, just make sure to hop in here if I'm running out of time, because I can't see the clock from here. Okay, so I have my vase, and one of the things you want to think about, especially with a big wide mouth vase like this one, is how to actually anchor your branches and all your flowers in there. So if I was going to keep this one, or if this was something that was just going to be on my table, I might use one of these guys, which is called a flower frog or pin frog, or Kenzen, something like that. They look like medieval torture devices, but they're really useful. And they look like all kinds of things. This is a nice one. Sometimes they have holes, right? So you can find them all over the place. Every antique mall I go to, I find more. But they will hold anything down into the bottom of your vase. And the way that you would attach these would be with floral putty, which is sort of like a waterproof clay. So not necessary, but if you have them, really nice to use. Okay, so today I am actually going to be using something else, which in the past people would use foam, like it's called floral foam. It's green. I would recommend not. That it's incredibly toxic, bad for the environment on so many fronts. It's like a plastic that never disintegrates. So florists have now moved on to chicken wire, which is great because it's really cheap, it's easily available. You can reuse it like many, many, many times. And all you need to do is, I always wear gloves with chicken wire because they're pretty pokey. But all you need to do is just cut out a square slightly larger than the size of your vase. And then you kind of want to squeeze it down into a circle, or not into a circle, into like a sphere. So you can see, hopefully you can see that there are spaces for our flowers to rest. And then you want to just kind of push it in to the bottom of your vase so that it's pretty secure in there. And that's the great thing about chicken wire. It moves, and you can kind of zhuzh it until it does what you want it to. Okay, and so that, and it kind of hides down at the bottom, kind of blends in. And so then the next step, and again, this is only if you want to, if you have the materials, you can really do a lot with just what you have at your house. So I wouldn't recommend going out and buying all this stuff unless you really want to, explore this seriously. But is floral tape. This stuff is, you can buy it on Amazon. It's just waterproof tape basically. And you can create like a grid on the top of your vase. I'm just going to do that really quickly. Sometimes people have clear floral tape. I find that green seems to work just fine. And what it ends up looking like is something like this. Of course, you can do an actual grid. It doesn't really matter. You can just do an X. Depends on what you're doing, where you're going with it. Okay, so here we go. We're ready. We have all materials. We need some water. Put some water in there. It's nice to, when you're arranging, that you have water in your vase. Not all the way filled, because otherwise I make a mess, but most of the way filled. And I'm sure you guys all know that, flowers drink from their whole stems. So you never want to have a vase that is not all the way filled. I'm always watching to see does it need a little more water? And that you change the water pretty frequently. Okay, so to begin, I would recommend starting with structure, right? There is, can everyone see that? Okay. There's all kinds of ways to do this. But one of the things that I like to do is just get all of my materials prepped. That means that for the most part, you want to have stripped the bottom parts of your stems because you don't want any leaves in the water. That's a really important one to remember. And so if we start with things kind of like ready to go, then it makes this whole process go a little quicker. that being said, you can see I have my snips. I'm kind of, as I'm figuring out where to put things, I might be adjusting the heights of things. This gets trickier when you're dealing with certain kinds of cut flowers that need a very specific post-harvest treatment for them to actually work. So like, for example, the euphorbia, I'm not going to recut the euphorbia. I'm going to use it in the ways that I can use it now, because euphorbia, you need to actually dip in boiling hot water for 10 seconds in order to get rid of that milky sap so that it's safe to use. So like these lovely bay, you don't need to do anything special with them. They're super hardy. Also, I would recommend taking a look at each leaf and each flower. Like, is there one that's eaten by a bug or something? Like, I don't want that. I'm gonna just choose ones that look really nice, and make my structure. Now, one of the things I have here, I don't know if you can see, but I have a Lazy Susan. This is a nice thing to do if you're making an arrangement that's going to be viewed from all sides. One of the things that you want to think about when you're choosing a vessel and choosing, everything, all the materials that you're going to go in there, like, is this going to be viewed from one side? Is it sitting against a wall? Or is it sitting on my table? And I want to think about each side of the arrangement. So that's why a Lazy Susan is really nice in that, for that. So you can look and see, oh, I need a little more on this side. And that will help. Okay, so now we've kind of got like a nice sort of base greenery. And already you can tell that my green tape is kind of disappearing. I can't even see it. Okay, so I'm gonna see if I want to add a little more. I'm gonna add a little hydrangea. This is I saved this from a garden friend. And one of the things that's kind of fun that you forget about, I think, I didn't really realize this until I was really doing arranging more frequently, is that, these hydrangeas, of course, when they're coming off the bush, oops, they look more like this, right? But how the heck do you put this giant poof ball into an arrangement? Well, you know how to keep it like this. You can sort of cut little bits out and leave what you want. So maybe even this is like a little bit too fluffy for me. Like, I want to cut out a few extra things. I want a little bit of this nice brown in there. The color palette that I'm working with today, and I'm not even going to get into color palette and choices around that, because that is a huge topic. I could talk all day about it. But the color palette that I chose today, and partially it was just the one that was available, is sort of like a sage, or like more of like an olive green, sort of a yellowy green into chartreuse with a little bit of yellow and brown, and then little bits of pink or mauve. So that's kind of the color palette that I'm working with today. But yeah, so my hydrangea is going to bring in a little bit more of that sort of yellow and a little more winter experience in here. And see that's even like too much. Sometimes you have to just go in there, put it in there, and if you don't like it, you take it out. Make a really big mess when I do this, and oftentimes I do it outside. I have a little it's not really a studio, it's just a table on my back deck that I make all my arrangements in. And I don't know if you guys know this, but I have my business is run out of my backyard, which is like a postage stamp compared to most people's cut flower business. And yeah, I'm doing a CSA this year. So I have spring, summer, and fall CSA memberships. And you can sign up if anybody wants to on my website. Okay, so I'm not gonna be able to do like a full demonstration today because I want to get to all the different parts. But if I was gonna keep going on the full filler, I would add a little bit more because you want to have like a nice base for which you can't really see the any of the structure that's in there holding everything together. I'm gonna kind of tuck that in. Okay, so we've got some good structure. I think we want to go on to focals, because focals are kind of like how we how our eye moves, helps our eye move through the arrangement. So one of the things that there's a little bit of like golden ratio and psychology here, but couple of things. One is that you oftentimes, in terms of scale, want to have your arrangement be the flower part be 2/3 the size of the vessel. So that's important to tell, like, okay, I kind of would like actually need this to be a little bit taller. So I'm going to think about that as I'm going forward. And also, if I was going to have this on my table, like one can only wish, right, that we would have a dinner party again someday. If I was going to have a dinner party, a quick florist trick is to take your elbow and set it on the table parallel to, or right next to the vase, and you don't make a fist, and you don't really want your arrangement to be higher than where your fist is, because people are trying to speak to each other and see each other across the table. So this one I think might not quite go on the table, it might be a little too big, but okay, so we're gonna think about focal flowers. So I have some really pretty hellebore that I rescued from the garden. And again, these, in a perfect world, I would not have harvested these, because really, hellebores work best when they are as cut flowers, that is, in seed pod form. So this one's beginning to kind of get to the seed pod form. But when there's sort of, just the pistil and part, they're not going to be as happy as a cut flower. So if anybody's interested, I have a tome of very specific ways to handle every single flower in what they call post-harvest care. So there's like really specific ways to handle every type of flower, pretty much, to have the longest vase life possible. And that's something I really personally work on, because I don't use chemicals. You can use all kinds of quick high, what am I trying to say? Like flower food and hydrator and things that have chemicals, and I don't even go there. So I like to know all the specific window when you want to harvest something, to have it have the longest vase life, and then some of the post-harvest tips that people have found to help things last longer. So one of the hot water method also works nicely with hellebore. Okay, so I'm going to figure out where these focal flowers are going to live. And one of the things that you can think about when you're putting in focals is, your eye actually reads an arrangement from left to right, just like when you would read. Isn't that funny? I thought Helen would get a kick out of that. And so, oftentimes people like to have an arrangement like in this style, starting on the left, kind of up, and then falling down towards the right. But I don't know. Rules are meant to be broken. I have lots of books about, there's all kinds of rules about flower arranging, and I do what feels good to me, basically, for the most part.
Emmy, I'm doing what feels good to me, and that is to say about 5 minutes more. It's a little
Okay.
longer than we had talked about, but I think it's going to be fine. So
I'm sorry. There's so much to talk about. I like
oh,
really tried to pare it down, and I was clearly having a hard time.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess what I'll just say is I will kind of put this guy in here, and then I will just tell you about the other things that I'm going to add. I'm going to add some of these beautiful ascot rainbow euphorbia, because I think it's pretty fun to have like sort of things that bridge between two different colors. So like we've got green and we've got yellow and we've got red, but look, this is all green, yellow, and red. So that's kind of a fun addition. And then the other thing that I also really am excited is that, you know, these are clearly not quite in season yet, but soon. And yeah, and I just brought these guys inside and I forced them, which I don't know if you guys know about doing, but I'm sure that you have probably heard about it. But brings a little bit of spring cheer before quite spring yet. And one of the things that I just want to mention here is when you've got a woody branch like a cherry blossom, or gosh, a lilac, any kind of woody branch, you want to help it hydrate. So you need to sort of take a pair of snips and cut like a couple inches up the stem to help it hydrate, or you can crush it with a hammer, but this is an easy way of doing that. So I'm going to add that bit. Ooh. And yeah, so then I'm going to keep working on this arrangement while you guys finish up your meeting, and then maybe we can swing back to see what it looks like when I'm finished, if I'm finished. But I just wanted to say that this is just a really, I mean, I find flower arranging to be in this kind of scenario where, especially where it's just for the pure pleasure and art of it, to be just incredibly satisfying and joyful and creative and artistic. And so there's just there's no boundaries, right? You can just take your clippers out to your garden and clip what you want to clip and find the nearest container and shove it in there and mess with it until it looks the way that you like it. And I would just say last bit of advice, take a picture of what you've done. Because you're not going to remember 6 months later, a year later, oh yeah, those look really nice together, or yeah, like, you know, so make sure to take a photo of it. Yeah, I guess I will stop there, and if there's any questions, I'm happy to try to answer them.
I'm really sorry to see you stop, because it's just so fun to see this just evolving and turning from all these disparate elements into this lovely whole. Things that really stood out for me was the use of the Lazy Susan, the idea of using dried to fresh as the seasons change, and your mention about the sense of this as an art practice and a meditation. I love the fist trick. I will be using that. And also my mother used to crush or to force things in the spring, and I've never done that, or in the late winter. So that crushing and cutting the stem, those ideas I will take with me. And I'm looking forward to coming back to you in a few minutes. So thank you so much for what you've done so far, and we will come back. Thank you. For the next part of our meeting, we're going to change pace a bit. I'm sorry, Holly, were there questions?
Just one,
Oh,
and it was about natural ways to preserve floral arrangements, which I felt like Emmy touched on, but I wondered if she had a specific answer.
Yeah, sure. Okay, are you thinking about like preserving flowers, like drying flowers, or just making sure they have the longest vase life?
Well, this is a question from a participant.
Oh, okay.
And
Well, I guess I'm new to the drying flower aspect of it. So I don't, besides hanging things upside down and keeping them out of direct sunlight, that would be what I know about drying flowers for using in the wintertime. But for like if you cut something fresh from your garden and you'd like it to stay in a vase as long as possible, the best tricks are getting it hydrated as quickly as possible. So getting it straight from the garden into some cool water, pulling off all the leaves that are underwater, because that can actually put bacteria into the water. And then keeping your arrangements just out of direct sunlight and away from heaters. So that will also prolong the life of any flowers that you have in your house that are cut.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you again. Okay. As many of you know, our former president, Linda Armstrong, who continues to serve in an ex officio position, moved off the island last summer. And for some time, we were concerned about who could possibly replace her. And I was delighted, and so were the other board members, when Nita Couchman agreed to become president. As you know from the newsletter and from the other things that have happened during what's been a very difficult time, she's a wonderful leader. And we want to acknowledge how grateful we are for what she's doing. And Helen is going to read a poem she wrote to Nita. And then after that, we're going to go back to Emmy, who's going to show what is closer to the finished arrangement. And that is she's also going to deliver that to Nita's home. If you stay with us and you wish, we're filming, so you need to know it will be recorded. But if you would like to open your videos and raise your cups to Nita, we would appreciate it. And if you would like to add comments, then please do so. Thank you. Helen?
Okay, I've done a screen share with the poem there, and I will read it for you now. Can you see the poem?
Yes.
Great. It's called Ode to a Garden Club President. We were in a pickle with no leader for our club, and yet the Orcas gardeners depended on this hub. For all the gardening glory and meetings to be had, Linda was certainly moving, and things looked pretty bad. And then you thought it over and came to realize that you could be the president for all these gals and guys. After all, you had retired and had some time to spare. You threw yourself into this role while living on Otter's Lair. And we are eternally grateful, for you are patient and kind, excellent attention to detail in a thoughtful, organized mind. You wrangle all the people with a smile upon your face. Your calm demeanor flows right out and runs the club with grace. We thank you, Nita Couchman, for taking on this role and doing so in all the ways that lets the club stay whole. We're still making contribution and are grateful all the days that you stepped up as president with all your special ways.
Thank you so much.
We'll send you a framed copy someday, soon.
That's very special. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Here's
We do want- Oh, yes. And if everyone will join us who is so inclined in raising our cups to Nita. I'm not sure. Maybe we need to. Yeah, think we can let people through. Is that right?
Oh, thank you, everyone. That was very, very sweet. It's been great to be able to have the Garden Club to work with all of you. Has been so fun, and it's an honor to have all of you on the board helping out, and it's just been a lot of fun. It's fun to see the garden club thriving in spite of everything that they keep throwing at us, health-wise and social-wise. But I think we're doing. I feel good about where we're at. So thank you all for being part of that.
Thank you.